I often tell them on day one that, guys, this is not rocket science. Okay, data science is not rocket science. If you are willing to work hard, if you're willing to burn the midnight oil, right, and put in those hours, you will excel. There's nothing that's going to stop.
Welcome to Admission Straight Talk, the podcast dedicated to graduate admissions and helping you approach the application process thoughtfully and successfully. Your host is Accepted's founder and world-renowned admissions guru, Linda Abraham. At Accepted, our mission is to get you to that unforgettable moment when you read your acceptance email and shout, "Yes, I'm in!" Confident you'll be attending the perfect program to help you launch the career of your dreams.
Welcome to the 597th episode of Admission Straight Talk. Thanks for tuning in. The challenge at the heart of admissions is showing that you both fit in at your target schools and stand out in the applicant pool. Accepted's free download, Fitting In and Standing Out, the paradox at the heart of admissions, will show you how to do both. Master this paradox and you are well on your way to acceptance. You can download this free guide at accepted.com/FISO. Our guest today is Dr. Anindya Ghose, Heinz Riehl Chair of Professor of Technology and Marketing at New York University's Leonard Stern School of Business and Director of the Masters of Business Analytics and AI program at Stern. Normally, I would give a brief bio, but Dr. Ghose's list of achievements, titles, degrees, books is so long that let's just say he's here today to discuss Stern's Masters of Business Analytics and AI program. Dr. Ghose, welcome to Admission Straight Talk.
Thank you for having me, Linda.
My pleasure. Can you give us an overview of the Masters of Business Analytics and AI program at Stern?
Sure. So this is a one-year specialized degree program in which our graduates are trained to take data-driven decisions. As you might know, over the last more than a decade ago or so, companies started moving towards making decisions based on data as opposed to simple intuition and gut. And I think there was this opportunity that no other business school had a degree in this space. And we thought, why don't we be the first? And turns out that the market really handsomely rewarded our graduates. It's been almost 12 years now.
That's right. Yeah. Now you say it started, the program started in 2012 or
2013, correct.
2013. Yeah. Okay. Why was AI added to the title? Why the change?
Right. So, amongst the many hats that I have, I spend a lot of time in the industry helping companies with, their data-driven decision making. A lot of them have data and they don't know quite what to do with it. And
That's
as been last, 4 or 5 years, I've been working with them. And it turns out that, all of these companies have been hearing about AI, but they didn't really know what AI is. So it was this mysterious, mythical thing. But I had a background in AI for almost 20 years. It's just that at that time we were the nerdy, geeky, folks, and today we are cool and happening because AI is everywhere. And so I think when I talk to a lot of these companies, my colleagues or ex-colleagues, they were like, look, we need people, graduates with degrees or at least skill sets in AI, and we don't have. And I had been anticipating this over the last 4 or 5 years, and I'd been already making changes in the curriculum, like putting in new courses in AI, revamping existing courses. And as the market really started talking about AI, I approached our deans and said, look, I think we are ready. We should rebrand or rename the program. And it took a little while for the discussions to actually come to fruition, but eventually our deans agreed and said, I think it's the right time. So that was the genesis. I saw the market demand. I saw a huge, feedback from recruiters saying that we need skills in AI. And the curriculum was already geared towards an AI degree. And so I thought this is the right time.
I am not a techie at all. Okay. But isn't AI kind of just a very advanced use of data?
In some ways it is. And so, we have this framework based on which I put together this curriculum in the MSBAi program. Data is just one part of it, but there is, like data engineering is sort of the lowermost level. And then there's analytics, there's modeling. There are various dimensions of AI, like generative AI, and there are various dimensions of machine learning. The way I designed this curriculum is we have a stack layer-based approach where we start with much broad-based skill sets first, and then narrow it down like a pyramid. Okay? And so data, you're right, the data is a part of it, but it's one thing. There are many other components in an AI degree program that are required.
What are some of those other components?
So, for example, most of the data sets that we know that exist are raw and dirty. They are not processed. They're not curated. They have a lot of problems. And so, data engineering is the first step where, unless you clean the garbage, you end up with sort of what we call garbage in, garbage out,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so we basically train our students before they unleash the AI algorithm. We train them to clean the data. And that's not a very kind of an exciting part of the job, but it's an incredibly important part of the job. And then once you do that, then we train them on how to build different models, like predictive models or causal models or prescriptive models. Then we teach them how to tell the story, which is, what is the question you're trying to answer? Why is it important? Who can use it? And finally, we teach them sort of what we call responsible AI, which is, you should always keep in mind that ethics and fairness and equality and equity is important. And so AI can be magical, but you got to be very cognizant of the limitations of AI, which is you have to debias the algorithms to make sure they are fair. They do not end up in discrimination. The algorithms are trained using ethical means. And so those are the other components beyond data.
That was a great answer. Thank you for a non-techie. I appreciate it. Who is this program intended for? Who is it intended? I guess on some level, it's intended to serve the businesses who are looking for these skills. But in terms of the applicants, is it for engineers? Is it for people coming from healthcare? Who is it for?
Right. So we actually draw candidates and applicants from across the board. We almost never even from the beginning, we never restricted only to engineers. We typically see that people with some level of quantitative or computational background have maybe a slight edge coming in, but by no means is that sort of a deal breaker. So if you don't have one, there are other means with which you can like compensate for that. So a lot of people we work with in the program, they may not have a professional degree in engineering or quantitative sciences, but during their work experience, right, they've actually acquired on-the-job skills that are more quantitative or computationally intensive. And so sometimes the lack of a prior degree in these skills can be compensated by actual work experience.
Got it. And can you go over a little bit of the structure of the program? I know this is a program for working professionals, right?
Yes. So
Right.
for at least till last year, that's what we asked for. You should have at least 3 to 5 years of experience. But now, going forward from this year, because of this massive demand of AI, we've started to relax it now. We no longer are going to impose that 3 to 5 years of prior experience.
Okay. Now, there are in-residence portions of the programs and remote portions of the program, correct?
That's right. So it's not a full-time program.
Mhm.
The way it works is we have 5 modules. Each module lasts for about a week. It's during those modules the students meet with the faculty in person, physically, and mostly in New York City with one global module. But then in between modules, everything is happening remotely. Some courses require you to check in at least once between modules, some don't. But the students have to, obviously, they have to work in groups. So amongst themselves, they are constantly, almost on a weekly basis, they're logging in and like discussing and finishing assignments and pre-module and post-module work.
All right. And during the remote portions of the program, how much time per week do students typically spend completing the program?
Yeah, I would say on an average, between 25 and 30 hours a week, which makes it possible for them to continue, their full-time jobs. Let's say, they have 40 hours or 50 hours of full-time job. And then on top of that, they can add another 20, 25 hours a week. A few weeks tend to be higher, but the 2025 is typically the average.
Okay. I know you mentioned that there's most of the in-person sessions are in New York City, but you also mentioned there's a global component to where globally do you typically go?
Yeah, so we have one global module. We used to have more before, but we have one global module in Abu Dhabi, in the United Arab Emirates. And there's a couple of reasons why I chose that. One is NYU has, full-fledged campus in
Sure.
Abu Dhabi. It's relatively brand new and it's really pretty awesome and, pretty flashy and all that. But also the other important reason is the Gulf states are extremely progressive when it comes to technology adoption and thinking about the vision. So, if you look at like Qatar or Saudi Arabia, UAE, when it comes to AI, they're actually very progressive and in some ways a lot more than maybe Europe or Africa. And
Really?
so when it came to the choice, because I wanted to give our students an exposure into maybe opportunities globally, I thought, look, NYU has an infrastructure. On top of that, this is a very progressive nation when it comes to blockchain, technology, AI. So let's make the best of it.
How many students are in the MSBAI, and do they ever mix or meet with the other graduate students at Stern or the undergraduate students at Stern?
So we have, I believe, approximately 40 as of this year. When it comes to mixing with others, there's no formal requirement, but I see them, when I'm connected with them on like LinkedIn or Facebook, I see them informally mixing with MBAs. That does happen. They're about the same age group, and then they kind of, the MBA, there's sort of a synergistic mutual relationship. The MBAs benefit from understanding the specialized knowledge that the MSBAs have, and the MSBAs can benefit from having networking opportunities with companies which, traditionally may not have recruited MSBA people, but now when they talk to the MBAs, they're like, oh yeah, so you guys also need people like us. And so, there's this nice kind of a symbiotic relationship.
Right. I once had this discussion with one of my kids. Isn't the MBA a more recognized degree and somewhat more flexible? I mean, aren't managers supposed to be making database decisions? What is the benefit of getting a seemingly narrower degree?
So I think the shift started to happen, like I said, around the time when we put together this program, because even with the C-suite, the CEOs and CMOs with whom I often work very closely, they started noticing the shift from this intuition-based decision making into
Mhm.
data-based decision making, right? So it became people no longer simply rely on their gut primarily. And so I think as they started to see the shift, they also realized that there are some benefits to doing it this way, using more like, scientifically approved methods. And that momentum then picked up as big data became popular, and then business analytics became popular. And now with AI, because of the very rapid progress in computation complexity of like both hardware and software, I think as an organization, if you're not making data-driven decisions, you're just leaving a lot of money on the table.
Right.
So I think it's just a matter of time.
What are the academic requirements to gain admission to this program, and what are the nice to haves? I mean, you mentioned you don't have to have a heavily quantitative academic
Mm.
background, then you have to have the experience. So, I mean, is the experience required or is it nice to have? How would you put that?
Yeah, so I would say, maybe more than academic requirements, we traditionally have looked for some relevant work experience
Okay.
in broadly, let's say, sort of, again, this space of analytics or analysts or maybe even programming. So I think we typically look for people with background in analytics or programming, because if you have that, it sort of helps to hit the ground running, right?
Sure. I would assume some
Um,
knowledge of statistics is pretty important.
Yeah, so sometimes you have like backgrounds in statistics or economics or even like computer programming that can help.
Right.
But I think over time I've revised the curriculum in a way where if you don't have that, it's not going to be a big impediment for you to make progress. And quite often, frankly, we see, I often tell them on day one that guys, this is not rocket science. Okay, data science is not rocket science. If you are willing to work hard, if you're willing to burn the midnight oil, right, and put in those hours, you will excel. There's nothing that's going to stop you.
Right. And what do you ever tell people, look, I'm going to admit you, but I advise you to take this and this class before you start the program?
So I sometimes people ask me, and I've
Yeah.
said that I have given them, like, our program starts in May, and people start to get admitted by December of the previous year, so they got about
Mhm.
6 months. And if and when they ask me for advice on how should I best use my time, I often say, why don't you take like online today? Like, education is totally democratized now, right? So
Right.
you can get certification program. Like Harvard has a program in, with Python, programming in
Sure.
Python, right? And like top universities now have these certification programs, so consider that, and many of them do.
And what kind of experience do you like to see? Just again, you mentioned computer programming. What about again? I thought healthcare data analytics, military data analytics. There's all kinds of data
Mhm.
analytics. With any of it, you don't really care what industry it is, as long as they have some relevant experience. Insurance, to be sure.
Yeah. So and funny you mentioned all three. We do get people from all three. We do get, military veterans, we get healthcare professionals, we get insurance professionals. So what I tell them and what, on day one again is, look, you may have picked up some skills in your domain, but what we are going to teach you are cross-functional skills where based on those first principles, now that you've learned, you can apply them in any data set. So literally we are agnostic to the industry because what the way the curriculum is structured is we are going to give you this portfolio of, hammers and nails and, knives and all sort of thing. And you can now then sculpt any data set the way you want it.
Right, right. Now, I noticed that neither the GRE nor the GMAT is required, but may be requested by applicants, I should say. Who is likely to be requested to take the test, and does the test score play any role in the awarding of scholarships, specifically the Dean Scholarship or the Yellow Ribbon Program for U.S. veterans?
So I would say, so first of all, we do not require GMAT and GRE as part of
Right. Yeah.
admissions. I think the standardized tests are usually helpful for the admissions team to assess if the candidate is academically ready. It's a very rigorous program, right? You have to
Right.
put in 25, 30 hours every week beyond your actual work hours, right?
Mhm.
But what we have done is we've realized that there are other data points that can be used to assess someone's academic capability. So like undergrad degrees, graduate degrees, any certification, any coursework. So we also, like I said, because it's a professional degree program, we look for your prior professional experience. And if you have a couple of years of relevant experience, that does help.
Oh, yeah.
And then I think you asked about scholarships. Typically when we're like awarding merit scholarships, we look at the whole application pretty holistically,
Mhm.
and we would then decide to award scholarships to those people who we think are going to be a strong addition to the overall cohort based on their professional background and experiences.
All right. Thank you. Now, there's an essay that's a required part of the application. What are you looking for in the essay portion of the application?
We're really, like trying to get to know the applicant and learn more about their background, professional goals, and really the reasons for why they want to pursue the MSBA program. Because we do get a very diverse set of people, and it's also international. We get people from other parts of the world as well. So I think we are trying to kind of, keep in or maintain or enhance a level of diversity in the cohort, right? I think we are looking for people who are truly excited to kind of invest and learn in this program. We want them to build relationships with not just faculty, but also their peers, and like kind of basically like contribute positively to this program. And last but not the least, if you can
Yeah.
demonstrate in the essay that you truly have a passion for data, maybe you did a project using publicly available open source data, that's like the icing on the cake.
Wow. All right. Good tip. What can applicants expect if they're lucky enough to be invited to interview?
So I think again, I personally don't do the interviews, but our admissions team led by Neha Singhal, she does it. What they have told me is that the interviews tend to be like a two-way conversation, right?
Mhm.
Where they're trying to get to know more about the applicant and get to know more, and the applicant is trying to get to know more about the program. Like, really, is it the right step? Because sometimes, like, there are a handful of situations where people have not really thought through what they want to do with this degree program, and you know and I think it's appropriate for the admissions team to counsel them and say, look, if you haven't thought through, maybe you want to think about it more, maybe come back next year. So I think they treat the interview more like a formal job interview. Okay, so they're going to be asking questions about your background, accomplishments, and goals, and then we will want to assess how the MSBAi curriculum actually fits with those goals, right?
Right.
And it's usually about 30 minutes or so.
Right. Okay. Makes sense. Speaking of goals, what are the typical positions that graduates of this program go into? Do they have access to the Career Center at Stern?
No, so okay, so great question. So we don't, because this is not a full-time program, they don't have a formal access to the Career Center. Well, we often send them like, if the career center sends like event information about events, like Jamie Dimon from JP Morgan comes and does a fire chat with one of the faculty right now. Like he is obviously, a world-renowned figure. So we will inform our MSBA students about that sort of fireside chat. So we keep them informed, but there's no formal relationship with the career center.
Got it. All right. Do graduates of the program typically just advance in their current positions, or do they change companies and
Right.
roles? I mean,
Yeah, great question again. So we find both. So sometimes the folks who are slightly senior, generally I would say they are using this degree program to advance in their existing organization, like climb the ladder, so to
right.
speak.
Mm-hmm.
Younger people, oftentimes, they are, because age is on their side, they often try to experiment. So they might have spent a couple of years in retailing and realize, okay, I want to move to banking or move to consulting. So I do see that, cross industry migration. Typically, it's on the younger student side.
All right. What do you think of applicants using AI in their application?
You mean to write the application?
To write the
Yeah,
application?
so
Yeah.
I actually personally I'm in all in favor of using AI tools as long as you disclose it. And
Uh-huh.
so, that's something we have mandated also in the program curriculum, that I have not stopped students, and I've basically suggested to faculty, faculty have their own mind, right? So I can't impose it, but I basically told them, look, the real world, these guys have access to AI tools. This is only going to get more and more ubiquitous, right? So why make it this artificial distinction between tools that you can use in the real world but not use in the program? What I've told our faculty is you should revise your coursework so that they can actually use the tool, and then you can assess them in a way that makes sense, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think in the application too, look, if you've used it, just, and if you're asked, just be honest, and we're not going to hold that against you.
Right. As we were talking earlier, I at one point interviewed Dr. Robert Solomon, who's from
Yeah,
NYU Stern Abu Dhabi.
yeah.
And I asked him this question also, and about I don't know if it was specifically about the use of AI. Anyway, he started talking about it. What he does is he said that he has a question he likes to ask applicants. Here's a response to a question I asked AI. What's wrong with it? Tell me what's wrong with it.
Yeah, that's smart. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty smart too. And I don't think it was a take home exam either.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty clever. But you just came out with a new book, right? Can you tell us a little bit about your new book?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So first of all, there is a direct connection between the book and the program. And if you ask me how, it turns out that the curriculum that I designed for the program is actually based on the framework that is there in the book. And
I see.
my co-author and I, Ravi, he also teaches in the program. We started writing the book 4 years ago. Okay, and both he and I spent a lot of time consulting with companies. So I think collectively we work with almost 100 companies at this point. And that framework is so well tested now across dozens of companies. So I felt very comfortable and confident changing the curriculum based on the framework. And so that's a connection of the book with the program. Now the book is called Thrive: Maximizing Well-being in the Age of AI. And we wrote this book because we were really tired of the negative narrative around AI, you know. And we thought it is really prudent on us to balance the narrative and tell the other side of the story. And nobody was doing that, because good news doesn't catch attention, right? Bad news sells.
If
So
it bleeds, it
we're like,
leads.
okay, so what? Like, we are seekers of the truth, so we're going to tell what the true story is. So that's the background of the book.
Can you give us an example?
Yeah,
Just a real
so
quick
we talk
example.
about, absolutely, we talk about how AI can improve your physical health, mental health, and I can give you examples, dating,
Please.
relationships, work.
Well, let's start with health. I'm past dating. Let's start with
Okay.
health.
Okay. So two of my favorite stories are, one is based in the US. With an increasing use of granular location data, first responders, 911 medical professionals, when they can improve their response time by 1 minute in a densely congested city like New York City, they have been able to save 10,200 lives, people who are
Wow.
just going through heart attack or a brain stroke,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's an example of AI was used on location data to predict, are you on the 19th floor of this building or the second floor? 17 floors, 1 minute makes a difference in your life.
Sure.
Okay.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's one. And the other one, very quickly, is out of Hungary, Budapest. There are these cancer detection clinics for women in Budapest. And turns out that last year, 63 women who actually had cancer, the human radiologists could not detect their cancer, but the AI algorithm that was unleashed on their data was able to detect it. So 63
Really?
people owe their lives to AI.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. That is very impressive. Right. And but your book is about the benefits of AI exclusively, or is it also about some of the risks and how to handle them?
No, so we are very clear. We right at the beginning that look, we are not dismissing of the risk, but there's like 10,000 books that have talked about the risk. And
So you're
so
not
we
gonna-
we just want to we are cognizant of the risk, but we want to dedicate the book to the positive impact, the positive stories about AI.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Now, what question would you have liked me to ask you that I haven't asked? What would you like to answer or discuss that I haven't raised?
Well, I think we just talked about it. I would have asked you to ask me about what motivated me to change the curriculum. And I think, it's simultaneously the writing of the book and the real world experience and the connection between the framework in the book and the curriculum is what really motivated me.
Okay, great. Thank you again, Dr. Ghose, and listeners. You will find links in the show notes at accept.com/597 to NYU Stern's Masters of Business Analytics and AI website, as well as to related podcasts and resources. And a quick reminder, master the paradox at the heart of graduate admissions by downloading your free guide, Fitting In and Standing Out, the paradox at the heart of admissions. You can grab your copy at accept.com/FISO. Listener, thank you too for tuning in to this, our 597th episode. Don't miss any future shows or valuable information. Subscribe in Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever podcatcher you prefer. You can find subscribe links at accept.com/597. This is Admission Straight Talk produced by Accepted, and I am your host, Linda Abraham. I'll talk to you again real soon.